Welcome to the Explainer. Have you ever really stopped to think about what makes a simple piece of paper, like a check, as good as actual cash? Well, today, we're going to uncover the legal superpower that lets value move so smoothly and securely through our entire economy. It's a system built on trust, for sure, but it's backed by some seriously clever rules.
We are diving deep into a concept called negotiable instruments. Now I know, that sounds a little intimidating, maybe a bit dry, but stick with me here. Because by the end of this, you're going to totally get the core principle that allows something like a check to be trusted and accepted almost anywhere by pretty much anyone.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll get the basics of what these things even are. Then, we'll get to the fun part, uncovering their unique power and seeing how it actually works in the real world. And finally, we're going to get super clear on the key differences between negotiability, transferability, and assignability. All right, let's get into it.
So first things first, what exactly is a negotiable instrument, or NI for short? Look, before we get lost in all the legal jargon, just think of it as a safe and convenient stand-in for cash. It's a way to move value around without, the risk of carrying a giant briefcase full of money.
Okay, so at its very heart, an IO is basically a written promise to pay money that can be passed from one person to another. Sometimes just handing it over is enough. That's what we call a bearer instrument. Other times, it needs a signature on the back, an endorsement to be passed on. And you see these things everywhere. Checks and promissory notes are the classic examples laid out by law, but even things we use all the time like money orders and share certificates can act this way.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. There's a super important distinction to make. While all negotiable instruments can be transferred, not all transferable instruments are negotiable. I know, it sounds like a riddle, right? But I promise you, understanding this is the absolute key to unlocking this whole concept.
And boom, here's the difference in a nutshell. Transferability just means you can pass something along. Like handing a book to your friend. Simple. But negotiability has that superpower we talked about. It means that when you pass the instrument along, the person who gets it can actually end up with a stronger, cleaner legal right to it than you had. So, how on earth is that even possible?
Let's go ahead and unpack that superpower. It all comes down to a fundamental legal rule and the really incredible way that negotiable instruments get to break it.
The basic rule for almost everything in the world is summed up by this old Latin phrase, nemo dat quod non habet. It just means no one can give what they do not have. So if a thief steals your laptop and then sells it to me, I don't legally own it. All I have is a stolen laptop, because the thief never really owned it to begin with. Makes sense, right?
But, and this is the mind-bending part, negotiable instruments are specifically designed to be the exception to that rule. Under the right set of circumstances, someone who receives a stolen check could actually have a better legal claim to the money than the thief. Now, why would the law ever allow this? Well, honestly, because without this exception, commerce would just grind to a halt. Nobody would ever accept a check if they had to do a full background check on every person who ever touched it. And this isn't just some abstract theory. Let's look at a real case all the way from 1855. Some banknotes get stolen, and the Bank of England sends out a warning with all the serial numbers. A money changer over in Paris, a guy named Raphael, he sees the list, but later he forgets about it and accepts one of the stolen notes as part of a normal transaction. So he goes to cash it, and the bank says, no way, this is stolen property. But guess what? The court actually sided with Raphael, and the reason why is the key to everything. He took it in good faith.
And that brings us to the most crucial point of all. The law protects someone who takes a negotiable instrument for value, in good faith, and without any reason to think something's fishy. This person gets a special title. They're called a holder in due course, and they get a title to that value that's been wiped clean of any previous problems. The original owner's mess doesn't become their mess.
Okay, so now that we get the incredible power of negotiability, let's put it right up against simple transferability. This should make the differences crystal clear.
This table really lays it all out, but the biggest, most important difference is that nemo dat rule. For negotiable items, it just goes out the window for a holder in due course. For transferable items, it's the absolute law of the land. Also, notice how you can restrict negotiation, like when you write account pay only on a check, but you can't really stop someone from just, physically handing something over. They are fundamentally different ideas, governed by totally different sets of rules.
All right, next up, let's compare negotiability to another related idea, assignability. And this is super important, especially when we start talking about rights and claims that you can't physically hold in your hand.
So to really get assignability, we first need to understand something called a chosen action. It sounds super fancy and complicated, but it's just a legal right to claim something. For instance, if someone owes you money, your right to collect that debt is a chosen action. You can't hold it, but you can legally assign that right to someone else to collect for you.
Okay, now look at this comparison. There are a few key differences, but that last point, that's the absolute deal breaker. In assignee, that's the person receiving the right. They literally step right into the shoes of the person who gave it to them. So if the original title had any defects or problems, the assignee inherits every single one of those problems, even if they had no idea. It is the complete opposite of the rock-solid protection a holder in due course gets.
All right, let's bring this all home. We're going to summarize the 3 ways title can be transferred so we can put everything in its proper place.
I want you to think of it like this. Assignability is like the bronze standard. You get all the baggage. Transferability, that's the silver standard. Your title's kind of shaky if the source was bad. But negotiability? That, my friends, is the gold standard. It lets a holder in due course receive a perfect, purified title, no questions asked.
And this is so much more than just some abstract legal idea. This superpower of negotiability is literally the engine of trust that makes our entire commercial world turn. It's the reason you can confidently accept a check or a banknote knowing that the law has got your back. It is a simple concept, really, but one with a massive impact on all of our economic lives.